Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. Now, to mark the end of 2023, I've created a top 10 list of the video games I played this year. There were a lot of games out this year and I probably only played a fraction of them, but the ones I did play were good. Anyway, let's get straight into it. Starting at number 10, we've got Dead by Daylight. Okay, this game is several years old now by this point, but I have been playing it for quite a few years now. So this is a multiplayer game in which 4 survivors go up against a killer, and there were quite a lot of updates this year. There was a lot of content that kept me returning to the game. Earlier in the year we got a couple of new killers, the Singularity and the Skull Merchant. And for fans of 80 and 90 movies, especially, well, horror movies, sci-fi movies, we got Alien and Chucky that were added to the game. And yeah, for some reason, I'm not complaining, but Nicolas Cage was added as well. I bought him as soon as he became available. Now, due to similar other games, especially in my list, I didn't spend a great deal of time playing this year, but there is still updates. I'm looking forward to seeing what new killers come out next year. Okay, at number 9 we have Marvel's Snap. Now, truth be told, I did only discover this about a month or two ago. That's when I started playing. I wasn't really expecting much. I remember seeing a trailer about a year ago for the mobile game, but it has recently come out on the PC. I have been playing that. It's a good time waster. Now, what you need to do, you can choose your own deck of cards from Marvel's superhero library. There's loads of cards in this, and you need to outplay your competitor over 6 rounds. Now, each round has their own points. The majority also have special powers for each card. So, for example, you could play a 2-point Medusa in the middle location. That's going to give you 5 points, or you could use a 1-point Rocket Raccoon at a location that your competitor also played a card at, and you get an additional 3 points for that. There's quite a lot of thinking about what moves you need to make and what points you can get. If you are sure you can win the match, you can snap, so this doubles your after game points. This allows you to get other cards into your decks, things like that. If you lose though, obviously you lose those points. I really enjoyed this. It's a good time waster. Unlocking all the cards, I imagine, is going to take quite a long time though. At number 8, we've got The Legend of Zelda Minish Cap. Now, this is a bit of an older game. I remember having this on the Game Boy Advance, but I only ever did one dungeon. So when it did appear on the Game Boy Advance NSO, I thought now's a good time to play it. Now, the Minish Cap refers to this new ability in which Link can shrink down to the size of a Minish. Now, the Minish are these miniature-sized characters in the game, and you can enter areas which you normally wouldn't be able to enter as normal-sized Link. Now, the hat has a name, Eslo, and he also kind of assists through the game if you do get stuck. Maybe a little bit like Navi from Ocarina of Time, I guess. Now, there are some tricky puzzles throughout, and some of the dungeons are generally quite enjoyable to figure out. Now, I did think it was kind of interesting, though, that to get into the dungeon itself, sometimes it felt like a dungeon in its own right. Something that I kind of noticed when playing Skyward Sword through on the Switch a couple of years ago. It had a very similar setup. It's not the biggest of Zelda games. I generally find the 2D Zelda games aren't that long anyway, but I did really enjoy playing it. And there's a lot of these collectible kinstones to find. That's kind of like a fun diversion as well. It really does look good as well. Good music too. Ah, look at the cute little fox. This should be a fun little game to play through, right? Wrong. Don't let this little guy fool you. This game at times is relentless with its brutal difficulty. So you play as Tunic and you're dumped into this world. You're kind of left to your own devices to figure out what you should be doing. If you do get stuck, there are in-game pages of this manual hidden around the world, but even those can be a bit confusing in their own right. Now, I love the world itself. Tunic controls really well. So he's got a sword attack, he can dodge roll. There's a heap of items and magic abilities in order to get through the game. Now, I did kind of have a bit of an issue at times with the difficulty. The bosses, for example, I did kind of find a lot of their attack patterns, I guess, were a bit inconsistent. So what worked 3 times before, the 4th attempt might not work. So I had a few problems with the bosses in the game, and they did take up the majority of my playtime. Now, if you do kind of find this a little bit too difficult, there is an option where you could, I guess it's like an easy mode, which makes the boss fights a lot easier to play through. You can concentrate more on the adventure side of things. I kind of wish I'd done that because I spent far too long on these boss fights, which perhaps ruined a little bit of the adventure aspect. But I did enjoy it overall. It kind of reminded me of like The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, but playing as a fox and much more difficult. So, like I said, if you do think you might struggle with the difficulty, I don't think anyone's going to judge you for putting it on the slightly easier difficulty. Now, the original Super Mario RPG never released in the UK, so the first real chance to play it on Nintendo hardware was when the SNES Mini released a few years ago. Unfortunately, the grainy pre-rendered 3D visuals of the game did put me off from playing it, so it was kind of a surprise when Nintendo announced this remake. I say remake because it has been rebuilt from the ground up in a new engine, but really it is just a fancy remaster of the original game with a few changes. Now, I'm not really an RPG person, but Super Mario RPG did surprise me. It's got a charming story, and being a Square Enix game, does feature some fantastic music. While it mainly does feature Nintendo characters, there's a couple, Gino and Mallow in particular, that have only appeared in this game to my knowledge. They're a good addition, and Gino in particular. I always wondered why people wanted Gino to appear in Super Smash Bros. And I kind of understand now why they did want that. Now, I did die several times in the first half of the game. Progressively, though, it did become easier once you level your characters up and you've got some new abilities. I did find it was a good difficulty for a beginner RPG, really. And it is relatively short, probably 15-20 hours. Probably a little bit more if you do want 100% it. I'm sure it's going to be good replay value. And I believe there's some hidden bosses in it too. Now, I'm a bit of a horror fan, so I was eagerly awaiting Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I did play it early in the year, really enjoyed it and pre-ordered it. There were a few issues at launch, but it is based on the iconic movie of the same name, obviously. It's a little bit different than Dead by Daylight, although you still have 4 survivors. This game has 3 killers instead of the 1 of that game. It did launch with some good content, you know, we got 3 maps. We got 3 killers and 5 survivors, I believe. They have added some extra maps and killers since then, though. So basically, each game starts off in the basement, right? You need to escape by finding toolboxes. These unlock the basement doors. And then once you get upstairs, you actually have to figure out how to escape the grounds, all while, you know, avoiding the killers. Now, I really enjoyed this. It's a good looking game, controls well, and it is actually scary at times. Something that I think Dead by Daylight, you know, lost over the years. It did have some issues at launch. Actually, it turned off a lot of people at launch because of these problems. So it's still a problem to get a spot in a lobby, really. Can take a while to find a game. I really hope it keeps getting support. You know, it did just get some new content, but it feels like it needs more and more, you know, a few maps each year, extra killers and things like that. So I really hope that continues going. I'm intrigued though where they're going to get the idea for the maps, because the game itself is only licensed off the original movie, not its sequels. Really good, fun, scary game though. Now, when Sony showed off Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart for the PS5 a couple of years ago, I was a little bit jealous because I really had no intention of getting a PS5 anytime soon. So I was kind of happy that, yeah, it was released for the PC this year. Now, both Ratchet and Clank return here along with newcomer Rivet, who's a female Lombax and a robot kit. Now, I've got to say, the visuals in this game are absolutely amazing. It's kind of like you're playing a Pixar movie or something. Now, the Rift portals that everyone was raving about here, they're a nice addition, don't get me wrong, but they're not as amazing as you first think. I was expecting to be able to create portals wherever I wanted, like Valve's portal, whereas they're just set locations in this game. I'm not quite sure I enjoyed the story as much as the previous game on the PS4 either, but the big thing, the controls and the movement of the playable characters, they're just like elevated so high, it makes the game a joy to play, I would say. And there were some new Clank levels. They're quite good. They're like these Lemmings type of puzzle levels where you need to guide robots to the exit. And I did enjoy them. I think it sort of broke up the platforming a bit and shoot. It did feel kind of short, I'm not going to lie, but there is quite a lot of stuff to do. There's like a Colosseum, which can take a couple of hours to get everything as well. Really good game though, definitely recommended. Now, when Capcom announced Resident Evil 4 Remake, I wasn't quite sure how to feel about it. The original game is like one of my favourite games of all time. Could they really top it? Now, the entire game has been remade from the ground up. A lot of the areas have been expanded upon or changed considerably. A lot of the time, I still kind of recognise the original game behind the scenes though. The story is largely the same as well. Leon is on a mission to rescue the President's daughter, who has been kidnapped by the mysterious Los Lumidos cult. Not quite sure why the President decided to send one man for the task, but hey, it works. Now, starting the game, even the original house that you first come across, the layout's different, there's new rooms and enemies added, and there's been quite a lot of changes with Ashley. Oh, and I can't forget, Lewis also got more of a presence in this game, which really was needed originally anyway. I still think I like the original game more. Maybe it's nostalgia, I don't know. But maybe some repeat playthroughs of the remake might change my mind. I just want to give a shout out though. This got DLC called Assignment Ada. Again, it was a remake of original content from the older consoles. And I never played it originally, so it all felt quite fresh. And at times, I think I preferred this over the main game. Maybe because I hadn't played it before, I'm not sure. Ada's also got this hookshot weapon that I thought was amazing to use, really. But yeah, both games, they're really long, actually. Probably 20 to 30 hours between both of them. If you're a Resident Evil fan, you'd be silly not to play them. Now, at number 2, we've got Super Mario Wonder, and I'm not going to lie, I was quite shocked when Nintendo announced this. I was kind of expecting another 3D Mario, not a 2D Mario, which I felt had been done to death. Okay, I was wrong there. Now, there is quite a few characters you can choose from at the start of the game, and there's even a couple of characters that do not die, so you could give those to people that, you know, suck at platformers, or young kids. Either way, they can join in. It's a multiplayer game as well, but I do feel maybe playing on your own, it doesn't get as chaotic. There is the addition of badges, so these badges can change the way you play the game. There's invisibility badges if you want the extra challenge of not seeing your character. There's badges that allow you to run faster. But for me, I think I used the first badge, the cap I believe, which allows you to glide once you've done a jump. Really useful, I found. The new major power-up is the elephant though. So when you're transformed, you can collect water with your trunk. You can use this as a projectile. Or, yeah, you can jump on enemies, quite heavy, so it'll crush them. I don't think it's the best Mario power-up. It's a bit of a weird one. But, you know, it's functional. It's alright. The wonder effects, they're kind of the things that will stick in your mind. There's so many throughout each stage of the game. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, I think one of the early levels, there's a piranha plant parade, and you literally get these piranha plants sing to you. I'm never going to forget that, ever, right? I did kind of think the difficulty was a bit on the easy side, but then again, I had played a lot of Mario Maker, a lot of Mario games in general, whereas I know a lot of people did struggle with some of the levels. I kind of wish there were some more challenging levels, but that's just a personal thing. And really, you know, if I sort of match this up to other 2D Mario games, like, oh, it's tough. I still think Mario World, Mario Bros. 3 are better than this, but it's pretty close. Before we get to that number 1 spot, there's a few other games I did play this year and complete some of them. Disney Speedstorm, really good Mario Kart alternative, very arcadey, maybe a little pay to win at times, but a good game. Next up, we've got WarioWare Get It Together. Couple of years old this game, but I only got it this year. It's a good little game, doesn't take long to complete. Pocky and Rocky, again, not the longest game, it's a remaster of a Super Nintendo game. Really good fun though, multiplayer too. Next up, bit of a surprise from Nintendo this year, F-Zero 99. Again, I didn't play this too long, maybe 10-15 hours. It's a really good online game, really, I would say. And I think they've added some single-player content. Alan Wake 2, unfortunately, I didn't get to finish it. I had problems with my game crashing, so I can't include it officially in my top 10 this year, if it even got into my top 10. Enjoyed it. Hopefully, I'll get back to it at some point. And finally, Mario Kart 8 DX got its final Wave 6 DLC, so we've got 96 tracks in this game. That's an amazing amount, right? I really enjoyed the tracks Nintendo added to it this year. Anyway, enough of that, on to number 1. And finally, my top game of the year, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Oh, come on, it had to be, right? Now, admittedly, this game did take me a large chunk of the year to complete. Yeah, a few months of solid Zelda, definitely there. I'm not the biggest fan of the direction the Zelda games have taken. Maybe that is nostalgia talking, but a lot of these open world games in general I do find a little bit overwhelming and time consuming. Tears of the Kingdom is no different. It is a massive game. There is a lot of side quests. I feel like I barely touched the side quests, even though I know I did spend several hours dealing with them really. But overall, I definitely enjoyed this game and the changes it brought over from Breath of the Wild. The new abilities as well, they are fun. Being able to create things to get across Hyrule, really good addition to the game. But I have to admit though, never really forces you to do this stuff. I kind of felt maybe the game should have focused more on that side of things. And also I did enjoy the increase in shrines. They still remain one of my favourite parts of the game. The temples have been improved over the last game. Lightning Temple in particular reminded me of Ocarina of Time Temple, maybe Spirit Temple. They still don't compare to past Zelda dungeons though, but you know, they're serviceable. The extra abilities from the sages as well, they're good too. I do think one of these abilities does negate using Epona as much. In fact, I don't think I used Epona barely at all for getting around Hyrule. I used the other abilities really and making contraptions. Now, I've got to admit, I really enjoyed the story, and the way you eventually get the Master Sword kind of blew my mind. It was such an amazing moment in the game, and I think probably one of my favourite moments from a Zelda game. I do feel like I didn't experience the best of the game after watching the amazing contraptions people have managed to construct and post over on YouTube, but I'm never going to forget coming across that hidden underground path under Hyrule, or discovering the Great Deku Tree. The game is just filled with so many great moments that you can actually avoid going up against a lot of the bigger enemies if you just want to stick to the main story. It is definitely worth trying to take on a Gleeok though to see what happens. Spoiler alert, you will die. Multiple times. I have to say though, I do feel like my enjoyment of the game was heightened due to the fact I did stream this. Like I said, it was like 3 months of just Zelda, especially in the chat. It was a good time really. And you know what? A lot of games this long I probably would have gave up on. But I feel like it definitely kept me focused on seeing those end credits. And I'm really glad I did, because it was a great game at the end of the day. And I definitely look forward to what Nintendo have got, you know, next up. I know Nintendo have confirmed that it won't take place in the same Hyrule as Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So yeah, I definitely await to see what they got planned.
You are our final hope.
And there you go, that was my top 10 list of 2023. There were a lot of decent games out this year. I think actually it was one of the best years in gaming. And I hope to get round to maybe playing some of the ones I did miss out earlier in the year. I've got a stack of unopened games to get around to be fair. Yeah, 2024 though, I mean, who knows what's going to happen. Nintendo may announce the new Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever it's going to be called. Other consoles have got games coming out. Maybe Capcom might even announce a new Resident Evil. I hope so. Anyway, I think I'm going to leave the video there. Thank you so much everyone who has watched the channel over the past year or so. Really appreciate it. I hope you have a great 2024. Thank you. Take care. Bye.